Hey guys, welcome to the Gray State and this third part of the series on Sig Sauer's MCX Virtus Patrol. It's going to be somewhat of a short video, but high on information. So hopefully you guys find some value in this video and you enjoy it. So today we're going to be covering 3 things and they're all going to be measurements. So 2 of them are going to be absolute and 1 of them is going to be subjective. So hopefully we have a lot of fun today and you guys stick around. So like I said, this part is all about measurements. And we're going to be taking a look at 3 different measurements. The first one that we're going to be taking a look at is the overall weight of the rifle. Weight matters to a lot of people for a lot of different reasons, whether it's the overall maneuverability and balance and the feel of the rifle, or if it's the absolute number because maybe you're trying to plan what your loadout's going to be and it's critical. So maybe you're going to be out in the field all day hunting, or even more so, maybe you're on patrol in a duty capacity and you actually need to know the number of it. So today we're going to take a look at that. I have a calibrated, high quality, super accurate and consistent scale. We're going to throw this guy up there. We'll do it a few times and see what the reading that we get is. So for those of you that don't know or haven't had a chance yet to look or anything like that, if you do go out to SIG's website, you'll see that the Virtus Patrol is listed at being 7.9 pounds. So one of the things that's interesting about it is I actually weighed this, a couple of months ago when I first got it. So I do know what the answer, is, what this thing actually weighs. So it's going to be kind of fun to see that. I think you guys might be a little bit surprised. And one other little thing about that, just before we even get started, I do want to point out that I actually stripped this thing down for the purpose of this video all the way down to nothing. So it's exactly butt naked, just how you would pull it out of the box if you got it from SIG. I imagine that's how SIG actually weighed it. So we should be doing an apples to apples comparison there. The second thing that we're going to be measuring is I'm actually going to revisit trigger pull. I'm going to bust out my lineman and we're going to do a couple of trigger pulls. Now, some of you guys might be saying, hey, wait a minute. Didn't you already do that like a couple of months ago? Well, yeah, actually I did, but that's the thing is it was a couple of months ago. So I want to come back, I want to revisit it because I've shot this thing a lot in the last couple of months. And honestly, my trigger finger, it's actually this one, is telling me that this trigger feels a little bit lighter than it did when I first got it. Now, I could be totally crazy, it could be in my head, but I'm fairly certain I know my triggers, and I think that this one is actually closer to 4.5 pounds now. Back when I originally tested it, when I first got this thing back in the end of October, beginning of November, it was right around, I want to say it was right around 4 pounds 10 ounces to 4 pounds 15 ounces. It was definitely sub 5 pounds, but I really think it's closer to 4.5 pounds. So I'm not going to do a whole lot of pulls. I just want to kind of validate that I'm actually feeling what I think I'm feeling, and that this trigger has indeed lightened up a little bit, in the rounds that I put in her. So for full transparency, I have about just under 1,000 rounds through this rifle now. The other thing too that I want to point out is I have not done anything at all to this Matchlite Duo trigger. I've just shot the gun. I haven't polished it. I haven't done anything to it. I've been a real big stickler about that, making sure that I'm just being as bone stock with this thing as possible so that I could give the information that is the most valuable and would be the most transferable to everybody who's watching this. So that's one other thing. Now, the last thing and the third thing that we're going to measure today is, I don't want to say it's going to be controversial because I don't have enough people watch these things for it to be controversial. It is subjective though. What I want to measure is the actual feel of the trigger. And this kind of goes back to that other video that I did about the trigger a couple of months ago. Specifically the Matchlite Duo trigger that SIG has created for this rifle, being the Virtus. It is one of those things that I do get questions on it, like on forums and like other areas where I kind of frequent. They're like, hey, what's the story on that trigger? I'm thinking about pulling the trigger on the rifle, but I want to know more about it. Is it any good? Is it all hype? Those kinds of things. So, we already know what the pulls are kind of like, and the thing about it is that this trigger was actually, is the successor, when you think about the previous generation that went through the recall, and I'm talking about the MCX, SIG actually did the stand-up thing, and they put Geissele SSA triggers in the MCX. So it's kind of hard for them to actually kind of move forward. They had to figure out what to do and not keep putting Geissele SSAs and everything. So they created the Matchlite Duo trigger. So even though it's totally subjective, the best thing that I can actually think to do is put something like that has a Matchlite Duo trigger in it and get something that has an SSA trigger in it and put them side by side. And then honestly, just try and figure out how do you take something that's, qualitative, meaning that there's not a lot of data behind it. It's like feel based, and then measure it against something that, or find a way to actually make it measurable with some meaning. So what I'm going to do is, I think I figured a way to do it. I'm going to put them side by side in video, and we're going to go from there. So yeah, so just to kind of recap, those are the 3 things that we're going to cover today, hopefully as our goals and our takeaways. It's the actual weight of the rifle, revisit the actual weight of the trigger pull, And then the third thing is try and figure out if we can find some measurable way to measure the feel of the trigger to give anybody who's kind of on the fence about this gun or wants to compare it to a Geissele SSA, which a lot more people know about, kind of give you guys the information on that so you can make your own decisions. So with that being said, let's get to work. Okay, guys, moving right along. The first thing that we're going to measure is actually the weight of the rifle. So like I mentioned in the intro, I've got a calibrated digital scale here, and I've stripped the rifle down to its bone stock configuration as though you would pull it right out of the box. I think that's a fair way to measure it. And again, SIG lists this as being 7.9 pounds on their website. So one thing to note here on this scale is that my scale actually does measure in pounds and ounces. So we're going to have to do a quick conversion. 0.9 pounds is roughly about 14.5 ounces. So the number that we're looking for here on my scale is anything around 7 pounds, 14 ounces or so. That would be the 7.9 pounds that SIG lists on our website. All right, let's get started. Make sure we're zeroed. And this is going to be measurement number 1. And we are at 7 pounds, 9 ounces. So that's actually closer to 7.5 pounds rather than the 7.9 that SIG publishes. So that's a pretty cool surprise. All right, let's just validate this a couple more times. So I'll re-zero it. This is measurement number 2. Again, 7 pounds, 9 ounces. And just for completeness sake, not that it matters, I'm going to flip it around and rotate it. And we're going. Locked. And again, 7 pounds, 9 ounces. So that's pretty awesome when you think about it. So there you go. Published at 7.9 pounds. Actually comes up closer to just a hair over 7.5 pounds. So for those of you that are looking for to reduce some weight, there's some good news there. All right, let's move on to the trigger pull section. All right, here we go, guys. Let's take a look at the trigger weight again. Let's go revisit it. So if you guys remember, back when I did this, the first week I had it, I was testing the trigger out just because SIG was doing the whole Matchlite Duo thing and making a big stink out of it. So I wanted to go ahead and test it. And it was coming in, a hair under 5 pounds consistently, somewhere between 4 pounds 10 ounces and 4 pounds 15 ounces. Like I said, after the first 700 shots or so, I feel like I felt a more noticeable lightening of the trigger. So let's go ahead. I want to give it a revisit. I'm not going to do a whole bunch of pulls today. I just want to kind of validate what my finger was telling me while I was out shooting this thing, and revisit the sub 5 pound trigger pull that I had originally done when I got this thing back in October. All right, let's get started. But before we get started, I do want to show that we are, of course, free and clear. I always want to make sure that we're using safety here first. So we are free and clear because I have to take it off safe to do the test. All right, here we go. And of course, SIG lists this being somewhere between 4.5 and 6 pounds. Oh, 4 pounds, 9 ounces. Four pounds, 8 ounces on the head. You guys see that? Here we go. What was that a frame? 4 pounds, 8 ounces on the head. 4 pounds, 8.9. 4 pounds, 8.2 ounces. Four pounds, 8.3 ounces. And I gotta say again, remember, I have not done anything to this trigger other than shoot the gun. It's had no work done to it, no polishing, nothing. This is straight out of the box. It's got about 1,000 rounds in it right now. 4 pounds, 8.4 ounces. Okay, so I'm gonna call it there. We are just between 4 pounds, 8 ounces and 4 pounds, 9 ounces. So definitely has lightened up a little bit from where I was seeing. Again, before I was seeing between 410 and 415. It looks like it's shaved down about another 1/4 pound off of that trigger pull. So there you go. Again, SIG is, conservative, in my opinion, I think SIG has conservatively listed the trigger weight pull as 4.5 pounds to 6 pounds, and it's right there at the bottom. I mean, 4 pounds, 8 ounces. It's there.
All right. The other thing I want to cover while I'm revisiting the trigger, besides the actual weight of the pull itself, is the actual feel of the trigger itself. And I've got quite a bit more experience with it. And I'm going to do two things. Kind of weird. I know this is a review on the MCX Virtus, but I'm also going to take a look at a Daniel Defense V11 that I have a Geissele SSA trigger in, because I want to be able to show the two next to each other as far as how they actually, what I'm talking about when I talk about the travel on the first stage, plus the amount of there's a travel on this trigger on the Matchlite Duo that's present that is not present on the SSA, and I want to be able to show you guys what I'm talking about. So first thing that I want to kind of point out on this trigger is the extreme small amount of travel on the first stage. So if we look at it, you've basically got about 1.5 millimeters, and it's got a hard wall right there. All right, and then what's noticeable, I think, on the break of this trigger that's different from what you would say like with a Geissele SSA, and the reason I'm comparing it to a Geissele SSA is, yes, this is not a Geissele SSA, but in the previous generation of the MCX, there was a recall with the trigger, and SIG spec'd it with a Geissele SSA for a while, and there still is an MCX SSA out, and SIG also has used the name Match in this trigger. So I kind of want to, I feel like it's fair game now to actually put this thing up against what many would consider a combat-esque match trigger in the SSA. So what are the two differences between them, you might ask? Well, first is this amount of travel. So on the Matchlite Duo, you got basically 1.5 millimeters of travel. And the take-up itself is not necessarily light or, very smooth. I mean, it feels a little bit more mil-spec-ish than like it would on the SSA. The second thing that is, I think, really worth pointing out is how it feels after you hit the wall. Or with an SSA, you expect a nice clean break. I think Geissele markets it as a candy cane type snap. Well, the not the SSA, but the Matchlite Duo here, I would liken it more to like a carrot. It feels like it's got a little bit more play and a little bit more sponge in it, and I'll see if I can show you it. But before it actually fires, there's going to be a little bit of, you see that in there? Check it out. So I've already hit the wall, and there's still quite a bit of travel in there. So wall, I'm at the wall, I'm up against it, and there's as much, if not more, travel after the wall before the trigger breaks. And it's kind of hard to figure out where it's at. It's not super consistent every time. And I think that's the difference between why there's still a lot of value in an SSA over the SIG Matchlite Duo, if I'm being straight up honest. And I think I am because, and I think I'm being fair because SIG does call this a Matchlite Duo. So, wall, and you saw the amount of travel after the wall, travel. So there you go. Now let's take a look at the SSA. Okay, guys, so I just went and grabbed one of my rifles that has a Geissele SSA trigger in there so we could take a quick look at it and answer that million-dollar question for you guys. Well, how does the Matchlite Duo compare to an SSA? For a couple of reasons. Maybe you guys are coming from the previous generation MCX where they spec'd it with an SSA post-recall, or maybe you guys are just used to an SSA trigger and you're just kind of wondering, what's the deal with the Matchlite and how does it feel? How does it compare? So let's take a look at it. I'm going to break it down into two parts. First part is we're going to take a look at the actual take up the first stage, and then we're going to take a look at the actual break itself. So before we get started, I do want to point out that this weapon, there's no mag and we are free and clear. But we're all safe because obviously I need to do some trigger pulls. So first thing we're going to take a look at is the first stage of the take up. So I think the big thing here right away you guys will notice is that there's about a full 3 millimeters of travel here in the first stage on the Geissele. I think, my impressions, personally are that it's a smoother and lighter first stage take up. It could be, just all in my head, it could be psychosomatic because of the fact that there is more travel there. So it just gives that impression of having more of a smoother pull before it hits the wall. And then the second thing that we were talking about when we were looking at the Virtus Matchlite Duo is that Geissele markets this as having a candy cane break. And I think that's the biggest thing here too that you'll see on the second stage. As we go through the first stage and head into the second stage is that the break on the Geissele, in my opinion, is crisper. Now granted, this is only a 4-pound pull trigger, or maybe a little bit less. So again, that might be something that's in my head. But that being said, I don't see the mush on the other side. After we hit the wall, I don't get that same little bit of creep before it actually breaks. So I'm going to show that to you right here. So we got first stage, we got the wall, and then the break. it's almost instantaneous. And I'll rack it and do it. We'll do it a couple times. Sorry for the shake there. All right, so we got wall, break, wall, break. I mean, it is almost instantaneous. So, you know, where do I think, you know, if I had to kind of give a number to it, I think the Matchlite Duo compared to an SSA, I would say it's about 80% of what an SSA is. Would you be disappointed if you picked up a Matchlite Duo and you're used to an SSA? I don't know that you'd necessarily be disappointed. I think you'd think it's different. I mean, it does feel a little bit different. That being said, I think the Matchlite Duo is a fantastic OEM trigger. I think they've done a great job. You know, again, just for full disclosure, mine, you know, when I originally pulled it out of the box, it was doing about 5 pounds, and now it's down to about 4.5. It's very consistent. So I think those things are all going for it. Is it an SSA? No. That's why I say it's about 80%. I think there's still a very good reason, you know, if you're a trigger junkie, you know, and you like the way SSAs feel, I think that you'll definitely still be, you know, after you buy a Virtus with the Matchlite Duo, you'll want to go and pick up an MCX version of the SSA. That's just my personal belief. I'm probably going to pick one up. But for the purpose of these videos and these series, I wanted to keep this, you know, I wanted to keep the Virtus as stock as possible so that you guys get an accurate representation of what you could actually expect if you can't get to the local gun store and check one out yourself. So, all right, that kind of, let's go back to the Virtus now and let's wrap up this part of the series.
Okay, guys, so we just did all the 3 tests. So hopefully you guys saw value in that. So we're going to do a quick recap on here and then, you know, close up part 3 and kind of look forward to part 4. So today, the takeaways. Yeah, we measured 3 things. The actual weight of the rifle, as we found out, it's actually 7.55 pounds if you do the ounce to pounds conversion, which is noticeably less than what SIG actually publishes as a 7.9 weight of the rifle, which is actually, it's a nice surprise, right? I mean, in a world where companies often overstate and underdeliver, it's a situation where it was the exact opposite. So kudos to SIG for that. The second thing we took a look at, and my finger did not lie, is that this trigger actually did lighten up a little bit with more use. So like I said, I've got just under 1,000 rounds under the belt with this rifle now, and it did loosen up, just, you know, or it did lighten up just a little bit. I mean, not huge amounts. It was already a pretty decent trigger at 4 pounds 10 ounces to 4 pounds 15 ounces, but it's solidly a 4.5 pound trigger now. So again, SIG publishes the numbers of this trigger at being 4.5 pounds to 6 pounds. Hey, it's right there. I mean, that's spot on. That is SIG walking the walk. So they get a thumbs up on that. 4.5 pound trigger. And then lastly, this is probably going to be the one that's, you know, it's not controversial by any means. I don't have that many people watch these things. But it's definitely subjective. And that's, you know, measuring the feel of this trigger. And I think that came from that first video that I did. There were a lot of questions, you know, and a lot of people asked me, they're like, hey, how does this trigger compare to the Geissele SSA that SIG put in post-recall in the last MCX? And I mean, that's a very valid question. And I stand by, you know, after we figured out how we tested it, where I took a look and I figured out, okay, what's the length of travel for the first stage? How's the wall? What's the break after the wall? Is there any creep? Those kinds of things. I feel like I did a pretty good job of trying to give a very accurate comparison that is fair, you know, comparing it to the SSA, because SIG, when I think of the term Matchlite Duo, it has very specific words in it that mean certain things to me, like Matchlite. You know, I expect it to be a match type break. And honestly, there was a little bit of creep in there for me, you know, after that wall. So I took away 10% for that. And then the second part of the word is duo, which to me implies it's a 2-stage trigger. And honestly, the take up on this, you know, with that, it's just not quite there for me to put the kind of preload on the first stage that I like when I think about a match trigger. I really like my 2-stage triggers. I mean, that's where my bread and butter is, you know, that game. So for me, it's not quite there. I think of it more like a 1.5 stage kind of a trigger. So I took 10% off there. So I do stand by my assertion or my assessment that it's an 80% of a Geissele SSA. That being said, I think it's a fantastic OEM trigger. I mean, rare is it that you find an OEM trigger at 4.5 pounds that's that consistent, that actually does have a good break and a good feel to it. So I'm being extremely critical here only because SIG really set the bar high when they did the customer right by putting a Geissele SSA in the last model. So I'm just being, you know, I want to be completely straight here. You know, for those of you that have Geissele SSAs, you're probably going to, you know, it's personal preference, but, you know, hopefully the information that I'm giving you is value to you. I mean, and there's definite benefits to actually not having a full 2-stage trigger too. This is a lot more, it's a quicker rifle when you think about, you know, CQB type stuff. So it's there. It's just trade-offs. I'm just trying to give you my impressions of it. Yeah, so I mean, that being said, I think SIG was kind of between a rock and a hard place, and I think they did the customer right in the last generation, and I think they brought it back in-house, and they really elevated the game on what an OEM trigger can be. So, you know, the challenge that I guess is in SIG's court next, that, you know, we know what they can do with a trigger, so, you know, hopefully they do these on all of their rifles. Okay, so that really summarizes the key takeaways that we learned today. So let's wrap this thing up. So part 4 is going to be on its way. It's going to be Virtus at the range. I'm going to try, well, first and foremost, thanks for your patience as I get these things rolled out. I just have a ton of video from all the shooting that I did both a couple of months ago and the stuff leading up to this. So I'll be sure to put it as much as I can in there and get you guys the best information, at least that I have available, that I have from a first-person perspective. And I will, on the outro of this video, I'll be sure to actually kind of put some sneak peeks of the footage of the actual range days out there just for fun. It's not going to be a whole lot, but it's just basically going to be kind of like a sneak peek. So look for that. And then the second thing is, hopefully you guys found value in this, you know, and if you have any questions or comments, be sure to leave them down in the comments section below. I'm generally pretty good about answering them. And if you liked it, you know, I'd appreciate a like on the video. If nothing else, not so much for my ego, but because you guys have all heard about the stuff that's going on with YouTube where they're, you know, demonetizing other channels. I don't really worry about that kind of stuff because I do this for a hobby, but there are other channels that don't, you know, they're also kind of burying search results down further, making it hard to find this kind of content on YouTube. So the more that we actually like videos, the more that we comment on them, the more that we watch them, and the more subscriptions that we do, it just starts building momentum and trending in YouTube terms. And it builds us a better community. So if you can, you know, when you're out there looking at other sites or any of the videos out there, just keep that in mind about how you can actually positively enforce things like that or impact things like that. And with that being said, hey, thanks for watching this. I hope you guys have a great day, and until next time, stay safe. And I shot the ELD 173 match. God, I did it again. ELD 73 match. I keep thinking I'm shooting 308 at these distances. So anyways, in all of today, just so we know, I'm just shooting a regular old Federal 193 ball. Wasn't super ecstatic about the amazingly, I was hitting even in these crosswinds at 700 yards consistently. In fact, I put a couple right in the bowls. 73 ELD match out to 800 yards, and on the first shot, I put it in a bullseye on a 12-inch steel target.